Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're jumping back to the 70s and 80s. We're looking into this really fascinating period of Colombian and Jamaican cannabis smuggling into the U.S.
Yeah, the sources you sent over paint quite a picture. It's this whole tropical gold rush, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about, moving product.
Exactly. It shaped culture, sparked huge law enforcement responses. So our mission today is really to pull out the key stuff, maybe some surprising facts about that whole era.
Well, the scale is the first thing that jumps out. By the late 70s, Colombia was reportedly supplying something like 75% of all the cannabis in the States.
75%. That's massive market dominance. How did that happen?
Well, probably a mix of things, great growing conditions for sure. And maybe they were just, early movers in scaling up cultivation specifically for export.
And their Colombian gold became legendary, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. It set the standard for premium sativa, that more energizing type of cannabis. Quality played a big role.
Right, not just quantity. And then you had Jamaica becoming this counterculture favorite, famous for really potent strains, too.
Which brings us to the smuggling itself. Some of the methods were, frankly, incredible.
Like what?
Well, think about huge cargo ships, right? But disguised as, like, ordinary fishing boats,
Yeah.
just packed with cannabis.
Wow. And the planes. I read about low-flying planes just dropping bales.
Uh-huh. Dropping them over the Gulf Coast, even into the Everglades down in Florida.
That's where the square grouper thing comes from, isn't it? Fishermen just finding these bricks of cannabis floating in the water.
Exactly. Imagine pulling those up in your nets. It just highlights the sheer volume that was moving.
And all that cannabis flooding in had to have a huge cultural impact, right? By 79, the estimate was, what, 26 million users in the U.S.?
Yeah, it became the most used illicit substance. And the culture absolutely embraced it, especially through music.
Reggae, you mean?
Absolutely. Icons like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, the Mighty Diamonds, their music really amplified the demand for Jamaican ganja. You had songs like Pass the Coochie becoming anthems.
Yeah, I remember that one. And the imported stuff itself became kind of a symbol.
Definitely. A symbol of rebellion for some, maybe even a luxury item in certain circles. It had cachet.
And then pop culture jumped in, Cheech and Chong, right? Their movies basically defined the stoner image for a generation.
Totally. They brought that counterculture vibe right into the mainstream, for better or worse. And don't forget High Times magazine.
Ah, yes. It started in 74. It went from underground to being pretty influential, covering legalization, strains, the whole industry.
It really did push cannabis into the broader conversation. But, all this visibility, the sheer scale, it inevitably got a response.
Crackdowns, big ones, right?
Huge. Operation Tiburon, that was early 80s. They seized something like 6.4 million pounds of Colombian weed and tons of ships, over 90 vessels. They were really trying to break those trafficking rings.
An Operation Grouper followed pretty closely after that.
Yeah, another major effort to choke off the supply lines. But you know how it goes.
One route gets shut down, another pops up.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
By the late 90s, things had shifted significantly. Those Caribbean imports, once so dominant, they just plummeted. Went from maybe 20% down to like 1% of the U.S. market share.
Why the big drop? Just tighter enforcement.
Seems like it. Tighter borders, more interdiction efforts, and traffickers pivoted, right? That's when Mexican brickweed, often lower quality but easier to move overland, started becoming much more common.
So looking back at this whole tropical gold rush, what's the legacy? What sticks with us?
Well, genetically, it's huge. Those iconic strains, Colombian Gold, Jamaican Lamb's Bread, they're like the ancestors of so many modern sativas.
Really? Like what?
Think about classics like Haze or Sour Diesel. A lot of their genetics trace back to those landrace strains from Colombia and Jamaica. It's fascinating how these underground movements fundamentally shaped the plants we have today.
It's amazing. These hidden ocean routes, the reggae connection, it all laid the groundwork for the cannabis world we see now, even with legalization spreading.
It really was a foundational era. The creativity and the smuggling, the cultural power. It all came together.
So the final thought for you, the listener.
Well, considering all that ingenuity and the cultural forces back then, how does understanding that specific wild chapter change how you look at the cannabis landscape today as it keeps evolving? Makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.